You're a talk show animal. You're like one of those goddamn creatures out of Greek mythology. Half man, half desk.
Welcome to the Oilfield Leader Podcast.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Oilfield Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Christian Lombardini. Today, we're talking with Mel Gower. Mel has a very long history in leadership, mostly actually in the IT industry. He has over 10 years of leading teams and organizations. And in this role, Mel has developed a 7-part system that he expands in his speeches and in his coaching. We're going to go through a couple of the steps in Mel's personal development program and really get into some nuts and bolts and really how-tos. I think this is a great episode for anyone who wants to be a leader, learning some leadership lessons. Let's listen, everybody, to Mr. Mel Gower. To whatever degree that you were able to, what did you find interesting thinking about guys in the oil field? Or what thoughts came to you with that?
Yeah, so here's the thing. There are dozens and dozens of jobs out there that keep America running. And nobody in these jobs usually gets credit for it.
Right.
And I started thinking about what do the oil field guys produce? They produce oil. What is that? What happens with that? And it reminded me, I think I took like an engineering class or something one time, and it walked through the refining process. And so you find out that crude oil, the stuff that these guys and ladies are pumping out of the ground, gets turned into things like the motor oil for your car, clearly gasoline, kerosene, which actually rang a bell for me, and just all these other products that we use every day. So you start thinking, okay, well, great, gasoline, it's for my car to drive. Well, it's also for the trash truck that comes by and takes the trash away from my house. And there's so much, and the diesel fuel that goes to fuel the tractor-trailer trucks that deliver food to our stores and get things where they need to be. And that's where these guys and gals, they keep the world running. They keep America running, and they don't get it'd be great for them to get the appreciation that they need for what they do. That's a big thing for me.
Unfortunately, guys in the oil field get more heat than anything else, as if we were straight up raping the land. Now, to be real, obviously, think about yourself, or think about you and your body. You can easily imagine that if you go to the doctor and they cut you open, no matter how small the procedure, no matter how simple, how many times he's done it, hey, once they've cut you open, you're not the same. Yeah. So that's a given. However, you're so absolutely right, Mel, that it's not just that we go unsung, but so do utility workers, line workers. Whenever we have a big storm, line electrical workers, they go from all around the country to go to Florida and help restore power, and up in the Carolinas as well, right? Whenever you've got a big storm.
Yeah, being in North Carolina, we get a few hurricanes, every couple of years, it seems like. And yeah, those guys are out there. As soon as the storm breaks, they're out there trying to get power back to folks. And the work they do is just awesome for those of us out here.
I think that one of those things is, and I think this is right up your wheelhouse, is that a lot of guys, if you're going to do something like oil and gas, or you're going to do something like being a linesman, and I'm going to speak more towards obviously oil because that's where I'm from. We have to have a mindset for success, and we have to either find it in our organization or we have to create it among ourselves. A lot of times it's very difficult because you're given marching orders, and of course the orders you get from the command tent are not exactly the same as what happens on the ground. And a man has to wind up taking decisions and taking charge. And I think that mindset is very important. What would you say is one of the stumbling blocks to guys flipping that switch in their head to, I can be a success? Could you paint a picture for me on that?
There's a lot of things that I think, contribute to people not being successful.
Hmm.
And and a lot of it is within their own mind. They may have been told, you know what, I'm just an oil guy. Or they may have been told, you'll never amount to anything. That happens a lot. And people have to rewrite the stories that they've been told growing up or that they've heard from other people. They have to put it in their mind that, you know what, I can do this. And I think a lot of it starts with realizing you learned to do the job that you're doing now. That means you are teachable. You can learn things. And when people realize, hey, you know, I've learned this, I can learn something else. And they start feeding into that. That's when they say, okay, I can learn to go from this position into another position because I've done it. And when they look at that, they say, okay, what's the next thing I can do?
Right. Right. I think for a lot of guys, it's really difficult because, and I think that you're 1000% right, which is every success builds on builds for the next success. But sometimes we compartmentalize it. And what do I mean? Well, maybe someone thinks, you know, I can apply myself and I can be really good at my job, but don't ask me to apply that to the rest of my life because that just seems to be a bit out of my control. Does that make sense?
I can see where people would think that, but what I have found in studying success is that when you have success, or if you struggle in one part of your life, it's going to bleed over into other parts of your life. Mm-hmm. If you'll bear with me here, for years I have touted that there are 7 areas of success in your life, and those 7 areas are financial. Being successful financially, being successful physically, if you will, meaning you've got good health. There's an area I call personal development and play, and that's that time where you get away from it and you're learning a little bit, but you're also you're playing a little. Then you've got your career and purpose, and that's where a lot of people seem to find success there, and in financials where people tend to think of success being, but you know. There's other areas. Then the other 3 are your family, social, meaning your friends that are not part of your family, and then spiritual for folks who have that bent. And, you know, one of the things I find is if you're struggling financially, then it's going to bleed over into some of your relationships. And it may bleed over into your health because you're not taking really good care of yourself. And so when people say, you know what, I'm really good at my job and I compartmentalize my job, it's really sad when they don't take that success and bleed it into the other areas of their lives. It is tricky to do. It's not going to lie. It is hard to do that sometimes because thinking about if you're really successful in your job and you come home and your family doesn't see that success, it can really make it challenging for you because then you feel like you're leading 2 lives at times.
Yeah, you're in the oil field and you're the master of the universe, and then you come home and you're a shitbag if you don't throw out the trash. Like, yeah, exactly. Like, who are you? Are you the master of the universe, or are you the idiot that forgot to throw out the trash?
Yeah, exactly. You're swinging a 20-pound sledgehammer and making sure that you don't mess something up, and then I forgot to take out empty the garbage.
And then you pay for it all night. That's the other aspect that we're not talking about. But
oh yeah, as long as you don't end up on the couch for forgetting the trash.
Right. Or even worse, your coworker, he makes you sit outside of the unit all night, and it's like 10 below. That's even worse. It's like, just get your stank ass out. No. You're not allowed to be in here. Get outside. It's happened. But hey, listen, but when that happens, bro, you deserve it because no one is going to be that rude to you unless you objectively deserve it. And there have been a couple of guys that have been chastised. It's just like, you know what, bro, just go back to sleep because that's just about as useful as you are. But that's neither here nor there. When guys go into the oil field, I think that money is a big motivator, and I've been very blessed, and I want to state it on the air. All my friends know, but I want everyone to know that I have been incredibly blessed by the opportunities given to me in oil and gas and working in Midland. Without working that, I would not have the life that I have. and it is an American success story. There's very few places in this country that a man or a woman can earn the kind of money that you can earn. I mean, you have to bust your ass for it. It's not a doubt, but I'm very blessed for that. And so I'm trying to wrap my head around what is it that some people are not quite getting. Like you say, Mel, I can be successful in my job, but what is it that I need to kind of jump over? So talk to me a little bit about the personal development aspects, because you have financial, physical, personal development, your career and purpose, family, your social, which is your friends, and your spiritual. I think for career and purpose, maybe not a lot of guys are looking to retire out of the oil field. Most are not. Most are actually trying to parlay their careers in the oil field into something else. What would you recommend for someone who's in the oil field, but they don't want to stay forever, but they want to get a good job when they get out? What are some of the mental aspects that one has to have for that?
I think it goes back to one, understanding that you're teachable. You learned a job, and that means you can do other things. I think that's one of the biggest challenges I see is people get stuck in a job and they think they'll never be anything beyond what they are, and they forget how far they've come to get to that point. And for somebody who's going to look to transition out of any position, in oil and gas in particular, what are the transferable skills that you bring? What have you learned out there that are skills that make you really good at dealing with people, being safe, keeping your peers, your teammates safe so that nobody gets killed out there? I mean, you guys are talking about some of these things, 4,000 psi. That'll rip right through you. Let's be honest.
Yeah, straight up. Yeah.
You don't want somebody getting hurt on your shift. Well, that's leadership. That's teamwork, and those are things you can take and parlay into that next role, saying, here's what I do. This is what I bring to the table. And when you look at it from a skills-based, and when you talk about like a resume, when you talk about a skills-based resume, you highlight the things that you know how to do in your skills. You don't focus on your past history or your work history. You minimize that a little bit. And so what happens is people tend to focus on those skills and say, he has, he's got teamwork skills. He's done some leadership work. He was a safety coordinator. Okay, maybe we need to bring this guy in for our health and safety team here in this corporate job. You never know what they're looking for, right. But those could be transferable skills.
Absolutely, absolutely. Without a doubt, there's so many aspects of civilian life that are applicable from the oil field. But you mentioned something very fascinating. As a resume, as a list of jobs, when really that's not the point. A resume is a marketing piece. A resume exactly is supposed to get interest, pique curiosity, and then get interest. It's not supposed to be a list of your jobs. No one gives a crap about the list of your jobs. What they want to know is, who have you become? What have you learned? And what can you do? And what have you done? And I think that's critical. And it's very big in the oil field, especially when you're working on a location by yourself. At the end of shift, when your shift relief shows up or the manager shows up, either you did the job or you didn't do it. You can't hide behind a team. It's you and you alone.
Yeah. And what I have found with resumes in particular, and we're talking about folks who, like you said, want to eventually get out. When you make your resume, I have found that if you want to keep the same kind of job you've had, that's when you list job by job. Because that way you get to say, oh, this guy's got 20 years of experience or 10 years of experience doing this work.
That's a good point.
He knows what he's doing. If you want to change into something else, you want to get something that's not as physically demanding, where you're not carrying around, wearing 30 pounds or whatever of PPE,
right? Where
you're not slinging a 60-pound or 20-pound sledgehammer. You want to get something, maybe like a construction superintendent or something like that. Yeah, you want to list those skills, the teamwork skills, the safety skills, really the understanding the technical aspects of the industry. And that's where you want to focus it. You want to keep, because if you keep putting what you've been doing past, they're going to look at what you've done in the past and go, okay, well, this is what he wants to keep doing. It's not.
Right. That's so brilliant. I mean, that's really brilliant. Because it's so obvious. I think that we all overlook it. And I think that that's fascinating, that if you want to keep the same job, right, have your resume look pretty much the same. And I think that today, in today's world, there's no excuse for not getting done what you want to get done. I think that there's more than enough resources. Even if you were at your job and they didn't provide, let's say they didn't provide an advancement track, that doesn't mean that you can't learn how to do spreadsheets. That doesn't mean you can't reverse engineer what's on your computer at work. It doesn't mean that you can't take a class on your own or create your own website. It's creating your own opportunities, because there's two kinds of people, Mel. There's the ones who get it done and the other ones who watch. And what we want to do is we want to get those guys who want to get it done and help make it better. What is the role of preparation for long-term and consistent success? Like, what are some of the things that people need to keep in mind if they're like, I really want to get myself on the good foot for the better?
Well, really, you want to think about where you want to go. That's a key. But there was a quote I heard one time. It's be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And what that means is you're constantly feeding new information into your mind. And it kind of fits back into mindset we were talking about before. When you start feeding that information and you start seeing possibilities, and you start really picking up on those skills and some of those more mental type things than the physical, but that's where you're really going to start to develop your character, your personality, and those softer skills that you might need to apply to a civilian corporate type position if that's where you're going. There's a lot of opportunities out there. You and I'm not going to disclose our age, but when we were younger, if we wanted to learn something, we had to go to the library and pull out the card catalog.
Damn right.
And go look for a book, and then you're reading the book for 2 hours to find the one part that you needed. Today, you can go on YouTube and learn just about anything. There's websites out there like Udemy that you can go take classes in.
Right.
LinkedIn does some classes for a lot of that project management, leadership, finance, spreadsheets, whatever it is that you want to learn. One of the things I do, and I'm not sure how well it would work in the oil and gas industry, but what I do, I know in my commute, I listen to books. And my commute's about 30 minutes one way a day. That means I get about 4 to 5 hours of learning every week.
Beautiful.
I go through 1 to 2 books a month,
Awesome.
Just going back and forth to work, listening to audiobooks. And if you really want to change your life, I once heard you're going to be the same person you are 5 years from now, except for the people you meet and the books you read.
Brilliant. I love that.
And it goes back to that. How are you changing your mind, and how are you changing that circle of influence? And that feeds into a lot of success.
And it's vitally important, because there's the statistic, and I need to look this up so that way I can. Jamie, bring that up, would you? If such as there were, right? Pardon me a second. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. The statistic is that you are the average of your 6 closest friends, or you are the average of the 6 people you spend the most time with. And I think that marries, I think, into the expression from Oscar Wilde, which is where you send your children to school so they learn to become the average of all the children. Something like that, right? So when guys are in the oil field, there is a lot of stereotypical mentality, and I'm not judging it. I'm just saying that it is, right? There's a lot of alpha male, no emotion, don't give a shit. It's got to be done. Pack your feelings in a sack and tell it to the Marines, right? I don't think even anybody says that expression anymore. But it just, no one cares, because everyone has to suffer the same thing. But when you're a leader, it puts an extra strain on you as a leader, because you have to care. There's no substitute for caring. What is it, John Maxwell? I mean, the godfather of leadership. He says, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And that's the key. So what I'm thinking is, and I'll drive to the point, which is it's very difficult to try to help others if you are also in a tough spot, which is why to be a leader, self-development is critical, and constantly refining and reading and learning is vital if you want to be a leader. Because when you're a leader, you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. Today, I'm not going to be a leader. It doesn't work like that. And it's a big responsibility that most people don't even fathom what it means to actually be a leader and actually care. It takes a lot of emotional and a lot of mental toll on somebody. What would you say about that, and what have you seen in that kind of a relation?
I would say all of that's true. I've seen leaders in my career, and I've been doing what I do for close to 27 years now, I think. And what I see is there's two types of leaders. The leaders who get in their position and they're like, okay, I know how to do it. And they never really lead well. And then there's the leaders who are constantly trying to develop themselves and learn. And those are the guys who tend to be happier in their jobs. They have people that want to come work for them. And really, as far as a leader, even though they may not climb the ladder per se, they're really happy in their position. People love working with them. And it's just an awesome experience for everybody. And one of the things you touched on is nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. That's one that has resonated with my career. One of the things I've learned to do is I have learned just the very simple, fundamental thing of learning a little bit about the people you work with or who work for you. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how far it goes. I've told you, you've heard a few of the stories I've had. I'll tell you another one. I was working with a guy one time, and I went up to his desk. I work in IT, and said, "Oh," he had a picture of a dog on his screen. I'm like, "Oh, is that Mason?" And he looked at me like I was some freak. He was like, "How do you know my dog's name?" I'm like, "We went to lunch like 2-3 weeks ago, and you mentioned your dog Mason." He's like, "You remember that?" I'm like, "Yeah." Now, don't ask me what your favorite color is.
Right, your favorite dinosaur. Right.
I know your dog's name's Mason. I know your name's Casey.
Right.
That's all I got.
That's all I got for you. Yeah.
But the impression it made on him in that moment was, holy cow, this guy actually cares about who I am. And I guarantee you, I was able to go to Casey for the next 6 months and, hey, man, I need some help with this. And he was always willing to help. Awesome. Again, it's showing how much you care, it makes an impact like you wouldn't believe on people.
And, it's fascinating because, we're not scientists poking at lab rats, right? Like, we're not in white lab coats poking at lab rats. Like, we are the lab rats. So what do I mean by that? That, you said something like, because I take it this way as well. If I'm talking to someone, I give that person my undivided attention. Why? Because I would like undivided attention. And the second reason is that in this world that is so busy, is so fast-paced, everyone's got something to do, I think it's vitally important that people feel witnessed, that that someone has seen them in their lives. And everyone knows how busy everyone is. And so for your buddy to be taken aback, do you remember the dog's name? No. Because nobody else would give a rat's ass, right? But the fact that you remembered that was acknowledgement. And I think a lot of times we all get taken for granted. I think that's also the flip side of that coin, right? And it goes to what you said at the beginning, which is that guys in oil and gas, they do a job that they get no credit for. And if anything, nationally, we get shit on, especially by the Greens and all that. So it's very difficult to feel taken advantage of in a sense, and like you're not being seen. And so that it's very key to care, to really care about the people that you talk to. Like, why the fuck are you even there with them? Because every person's where they deserve to be. So if you're there, you deserve to be there, and you deserve to hear what's happening around you, because that makes you responsible, and then that makes you a leader. I ranted, but I don't know. That's what I got. Mel?
Yeah, it's good, man. Here's the other part of this. If I know that you know my dog's name, I'm going to go with that example. If I know you know my dog's name and we're out in the field and I'm about to do something stupid, I know you've got my back. Because
Right.
if you care enough to know what my dog's name is, you know who I am. And you're
Right.
going to watch out for me to make sure I don't do something stupid.
Right.
Because it's only a matter of time before I would do something stupid.
Well, we all do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I do want to say this, because I've spoken with some people who've gone out of the oil field, and they actually work in they work in high tech manufacturing and things like that. And they said, the one thing they realized about the oil field is, just like you said, right? I've got your back. When someone comes around and says, "Hey, did you close those valves?" They're not doing it to fuck you over. They're doing it because my job, or their job, is to back you up to make sure everybody is safe. Where in the corporate environment, my friend is telling me, he says, today when people come up to me and they go like, "Did you do that report?" Like, they're saying that because they're getting ready to throw you under the bus. Where in the oil field, it's the opposite. There's way more camaraderie and brotherhood in the oil field than there is in corporate America, from what I've gathered and from what I've seen.
I could see that. I will tell you, although I work IT, I did do some construction. I grew up in a family with we did construction, we did framing, and there was nothing like doing a couple of summers of framing in North Carolina in 90-degree heat and convinced me I wanted to do this job.
Right.
But yeah, it's one of those where you're going to make sure somebody doesn't do something because you don't want them to get hurt. And you get into the corporate environment and everybody is looking out for themselves and trying to climb the ladder, or what? Well, not everybody. A lot of people are
A
doing
lot of
that.
people, yeah.
A lot of people are doing that. And I count myself fortunate that, I don't know if it's just being really personable with people and getting to know them, where that doesn't happen to me, or hasn't happened to me often. It's happened to me a few times because of people who have their ambitions set and don't care who they have to step on to get there. But I think that a lot of it is the relationship you establish with the folks around you. There's a core human thing about trying to be, I think there's a core human thing about just being a good, decent person and not screwing somebody over that most people subscribe to.
That's the one thing that even babies know. I think that they did some kind of test with infants where they would give one infant like 3 apples or something, 3 red balls, and then another one, and like they knew instinctively that being slighted was wrong. And that's something, we really cannot separate the topic of leadership from the topic of self-development and really trying to be the best person that you can. I think that that's one of the places where a lot of people don't want to discuss it that way, because it sounds like a lot of work. And it is a lot of work, right? Being the best person that you can. And some of those things, well, all right, I can speak from my personal example. Like, so one of them is, I will never talk behind your back. If I talk behind your back, I can assure you the next time I see you, I'm going to say it to your face, because you can't be talking behind people's backs, right? Because that erodes your credibility as a leader. So you can't do that. And when someone is not in the room and you defend them, that is the mark of a leader. And like you were saying earlier, right? Like if he remembers my dog's name, dude, he's going to take care of me. If you defend somebody, they're going to be like, I know I can trust this guy. I know that if I'm not in the room, he's going to defend me because this is how he is. And it goes back to what you said before, right? If you're one way in one aspect of your life, chances are you're that way in every aspect of your life. That's the Japanese saying, right? How you do one thing is pretty much how you do everything. And it doesn't mean that people don't fail, but we have to keep trying. And I think a lot of people think that it's just not worth it. It's not worth trying because they're going to get stepped on, Or how does it go? They're going to get their head crushed in like a ripe watermelon. So they just don't bother trying to be the bigger person. But
Yeah,
Mel,
the thing about it is it's hard. And what we tend to see, or what, and even I do it at times, if I wanted to lose 20 pounds and be able to bench press my weight, which I have done once in my entire life, I think, I'm not going to go work out at the gym tomorrow and on Wednesday be able to bench press my weight.
right.
It's not going to happen. It's small incremental things that's going to get me to where I need to be in order to do that. I'm not going to go lose 20 pounds by Friday. Not without surgery or some other
Amputation.
I didn't say what kind of surgery, man. But and that's the thing that people can forget or lose sight of is I may not see results this week or next week or now, but 6 months from now, these things that I'm actually working on, it might be listening to audiobooks while I'm commuting. It might be picking up and reading a chapter of a book every night. It might be whatever, listening to podcasts like this to say, hey, wait a minute, there's something, when I get done with the oil field, there's something else I can go do. That may be what gets people moving and gets that momentum going. And it slowly is going to pick up speed. You're going to learn a little bit more and build on that. And eventually you're going to put yourself in a position where you're ready to go take on the world in whatever aspect you want to do it.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And you said it though, okay? You said it. You're going to put yourself in that position. I frequently think about this, which is, and I alluded to it earlier when I said, we are all where we deserve to be because it's where we've put ourselves, because that's where we are. So obviously, but one thing that I take very seriously is, Mel, you would have to admit, I would think that every career choice that you've made in the last 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, what you did last week, meetings you decided to do or not do, attend, not attend, phone calls you decided to take or not take, put you in the position to be talking to me today. Is that correct?
I would say yes, the good and the bad.
The totality. Exactly.
The totality of it, yeah.
Yeah. Every step of your life led you to being on my podcast right now. So that's a fact. How do I know it's a fact? Because here we are. So it is a fact. But what I take very seriously is that is true of every moment. So I was smiling when you said that, you've been very lucky in your life with the people around you because you've put yourself in that position because that's the kind of man that you are. So that's the kind of people that you attract. So I say this because for a lot of people who are maybe a lot of guys or girls, right, in the oil field that are in difficult circumstances, are surrounded by people that are bringing them down, have people in their family that don't believe in them. This is a reminder that, just like you said, Mel, you have to know where you want to go. And you always wind up going in the direction you're looking. So if you're looking for something better, if you're looking to be a better person, day by day, you will eventually get there. And treat with reverence everyone that you meet because they're there to teach you something. Because if not, why the jack flap would you be there? Like, what is the point of it all if it isn't for you to learn and pass on the energy and pass on everything positive you've learned to somebody else? And I really applaud you, Mel, for what you've done because you've taken everything in your life and your career and you've decided to turn it around and give back and add value to people. And I think that's awesome. I think that's fantastically awesome.
Well, I appreciate it. So a lot of my career has been in customer service or technical support, and it is helping people. At the core of everything that I've done, or I say the majority of what I've done in my entire career is helping people. And that's where one of my biggest motivations is. And so, you invited me to talk. I'm like, hey, if I can help some people that are, eventually going to get out of the oil field, or people who want to continue to progress in that field of work and move into leadership and help other people, sign me up, man. So that's why I appreciate you reaching out to me, because if this helps one person out there, I'll be ecstatic over it.
Oh man, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. Because I think that we would agree. Because I think that you and I we travel in a similar direction, right? You and I.
Yeah.
And I think that you know it to be true. The message is the same message. The only difference is how it gets told. I failed math in high school, freshman year, sophomore year, junior year. However, in senior year, we had a teacher that somehow was able to explain everything that had been explained the last 3 years, but somehow she was able to explain it to me in a way I made honor roll. Never made honor roll before. But it's having the persistence until you're ready to hear the message and you hear the right person strike your ears. And Mel, I think that you're invaluable. You have a very easy, very holistic understanding of things. And that's something that takes a lot of maturity, which a lot of guys in the oil field at the moment don't have. And that's okay too. Because I did one episode with a financial planner and a CPA, and we talked about guys spending all their money on Hellcats, right?
Okay.
or a big Texas truck, because and I'm like, look, I get it. Come on, you're 23, you're 24, you have no responsibilities, you're making more money than you know what to do with. Of course, you want the Hellcat. Of course, you do. Is that like necessarily the best thing to do? Maybe not, but getting out there and trying is what you have to do. But at some point, you have to realize that there's something better and focus on long-term success. And I think it goes to what you were saying, Mel, which is knowing where you want to go. How would you help a guy figure out where they want to go? Because I've run into a lot of people who are like, well, I don't want to work in the oil field, but I don't know what I'm good at. What would you advise someone that you talk to like that?
Well, I would basically say, tell me the things you enjoy doing. And I actually heard in an interview one time a question that made me, I've actually had a few of those, but one that actually made me stop and think. And the question was, if everybody in the entire world got paid the same thing, and you woke up tomorrow morning and could do whatever in the world you wanted to do for a job, what would it be? And I gave him my answer, but it perplexed me so much in the interview. We get to the end, I'm like, hey, Gary, what was the weirdest, what was the best answer you ever had for that? And he said, I had a guy that asked that one time, and he said he wanted to be the potato chip delivery guy.
Huh.
And I'm like, what?
What?
And he said, the guy actually had a great explanation for it. He said, look, I love to drive. And let's face it, those boxes can't be that heavy.
That's a man rooted in reality. I love it.
I'm like, so you think about, do you enjoy driving? If you don't like driving, you probably don't want to be a truck driver, a delivery driver, or something like that. Do you like being outside? Well, then you probably don't want a corporate job. Start looking about the little things you know about yourself. And that's where you start building, okay, what would this look like? And then explore it. Like I was saying before, take a class on Udemy or look something up on YouTube. Try it for a while. If you don't like it, move on to something else. One of the saddest things I ever heard in my life was driving an hour with a guy to a customer site, and we both work in the technical industry, and he was sitting here going, well, I've decided I'm going to go this path. I guess that's what I'm going to do the rest of my life. I'm like, how old are you? I think he said he was 26. I'm like, yeah, dude, you're 2 years younger than I was when I started doing what I'm doing now. You can change. And that's the thing. It's all about what you believe you can do. It goes back to that mindset. What do you think you can do? Can you learn? And if you've learned to do the job you're doing, you can learn. And you got to know that you can learn something new.
Yeah. Yeah. My brother, who is my younger brother, who's a tremendous mentor to me, he's infused me with so many amazing lessons. But one of the simplest is, if one man can do it, another man can do it. I mean, when someone gives you something like that on a slip of paper and you look at it, like, how do you look at yourself in the mirror and say no? Like, you're giving up on yourself at that point. And I think that's the greatest challenge. Wallace Wattles in The Science of Getting Rich, which is one of my favorite books, he says, if you have the power to think of it, you have the power to do it. Because no one thinks of things that they have no power to do. So if you can actually think of it, you can actually do it. The only thing that's missing is your willingness to do the work. So, yeah, I'd love to own a gas station one day. That'd be great. Well, you thought of it, which means you can do it. That now just begs the question, are you willing to do it? And I think that's where a lot of people drop the ball, Mel, is that they're not willing to do the work because it's hard. What would you say to someone who's resistant on that?
Well, I think it reminds me of something I heard years ago, and it all comes down to three questions.
Okay.
And the first question is, what do you want?
Mm-hmm.
Can you clearly articulate what you want? And to use your example, I want to own a gas station. All right. The second question is what is it going to cost? What is it going to take for you to go from today to owning that gas station? Are you going to have to learn how to run a business? Are you going to have to get some resources, financial resources to have put down for that? You find out what that's going to cost you to do. And then the last question is, are you willing to pay the price of that second question to get the first question?
That's heady stuff.
And so many people get stuck on, well, man, am I really willing to pay it? If you have to hesitate, the answer is probably no.
Right.
But it's one of those where when you develop a passion for something, you're like, yeah, I want to do this. What's it going to cost? You go and you dig and you find every little nook and cranny of what it's going to cost to get there. And then you say, am I willing to pay it? And you're like, yeah, I can do that. It's that cost, whether it be time or money or whatever, that a lot of people get tripped up on.
But it's funny because when you say, okay, what's the cost? I'm willing to pay the cost, say. I think that when you take that on board, like really internally, it doesn't become a cost anymore. And I know this is kind of playing with words, but what I mean is that the cost, okay, I'm going to have to learn this software suite, say, right, to do whatever I want to do. And I have to be up until 4 a.m. But, when you wake up the next day at 10:30 and you have that cup of coffee, you're like, all right, what the fuck did I do last night? Like, oh shit, I did that, I learned that. Holy crap, it seems like I advanced myself 2 weeks overnight. Like, that becomes the fuel to keep going, and the cost doesn't seem that much. Because it's
exactly
right. It's either the cost of that or the cost of, like that guy. Well, I guess is what I'm going to do the rest of my life. That is some sad ass shit. That is some sad ass shit. I'm not even going to lie. Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. I like that. Jim Rohn says that a successful person is someone who knows what they want and they're working on getting it. And just by that definition alone, they're successful.
Absolutely. And again, it's incremental success. It's at the end of the week, you've lost 1 pound and you can bench press more than you can bench press on Monday. To go back to my analogy from earlier, it's just making yourself a little bit better than you were the day or the week or the month before. Because what happens is it's just going to continue to grow on you from that aspect.
And that comes a lot, I think, as you said earlier, right? Is reading. And if you don't have, and some people I understand, either you don't have the time or it's difficult to physically read. And I get that. I love Audible, right? So I listen to Audible. I know you listen to Audible. In surrounding yourself with the kind of people who are doing what you want to do. Because that's another very difficult thing, is trying to find a role model if no one is doing what you want to do. It's very difficult to get auto-motivated in that case.
I think there's an opportunity there for a lot of folks, though. Given social media and how we're able to connect to people from our past, I think that there's, for a lot of people, not everybody necessarily, but if somebody wanted to do something, they could reach out through their social networks and say, hey, does somebody know somebody that is a a car salesman or somebody who's a supervisor or superintendent for a construction site. And I would think that, 6 degrees of separation kind of thing, you would eventually find somebody, oh yeah, I know somebody, and get you connected to somebody who would say, yeah, you know what, I'd be willing to do it. What I have found is people that are successful tend to be incredibly gracious and giving to those who want to achieve.
I want to tell a very short anecdote, and I think it ties 3 things together. So what you said about people who are successful give. So I'll start with that. So, and then getting around the people that you want to be around, and then being open to the opportunities. So, I don't know, about 5 years ago, maybe about 5-6 years ago, I went to a local builder here in Midland, and I won't mention his name, but I went to this builder, and I asked him, I said, I would like 1 hour of your time because I would like to talk real estate with you. I'm a small real estate investor. So he gave me 1 hour of his time, and I showed up with a bottle of Johnny Walker Black. Okay, so that was a given. So apparently, I guess I impressed him enough during our 45-minute conversation that I said to him, I like the idea, obviously, of single-family homes. This is what I do. But you know what I think is really interesting? I think storage units are interesting because, you get to collect rent. The buildings are way less complex, and, there's a lot less problems with plumbing and da-da-da. And I said, I'd really be interested in that. Mel, this man looked me in the eye, and he just put up his finger. With his other hand, he picked up the phone. He dialed something, and he gets on the phone. He goes, hey, Mike, you still got that storage unit for sale? Yeah? This guy Christian's going to call you tomorrow. You take his call. Holy cow. So I called the guy the next day, and he was even willing to offer me seller financing. It's just in the end, the numbers didn't make sense for me. So I didn't go through with the deal. So what is the whole point of this rimmer ramble, shimble shamble that I'm telling you? Is that, just like you said, Mel, this is the culmination of being teachable, right? Being humble, going to people who know better, and being honest, and constantly seeking, constantly going for what you want, but at the same time being humble and gracious about it. Because if I had come in there with a head of steam, do you think that he's going to put his personal contacts on the line for me? He's not. So I just thought that little anecdote just really hit on a couple of the points you made, Mel. So just wanted to run that by you.
Yeah, so there's 2 things in this that you told me that I think is what sealed it for you. First of all, you reached out and said, hey, I would like 1 hour of your time. You made it very precise, and I'm willing to bet dollars and donuts if you controlled the time, it was not more than 1 hour. However, if he controlled the time, there's no telling how long it was. Mm-hmm. Because I've heard of people, you go say, hey, look, I need 30 minutes of your time. And okay, fine, I'll meet with you. 2 hours, 3 hours later, based on how that interaction goes, They finish the meeting. The other thing is, I'm going to assume this guy likes scotch. So bringing a bottle of Johnny Walker Black was, hey, this is a nice gesture. He's showing appreciation for my time. And so those 2 things, how you approached it, and by bringing a gift that hopefully, spoke to what that man cares about, really, that made the impression. And let's face it, Johnny Walker Black is not Macallan 18.
No. And you don't want to look like a piker when you show up at a man's house. You don't want to be a piker. And
Exactly.
even if he doesn't drink, then at the very least, that's something that he can keep in his bar. And then when he has guests who drink, then at least now he has something that he's not feeling embarrassed about having, and sharing.
Exactly.
No, that's wonderful. Liquor, that's the social lubricant. There you go.
It's just one of those things. Like you said, somebody who's looking to break out and go into something else, find somebody who does that type of work, reach out to them. Hey, I know Christian, I know Mel. They gave me your name. Look, I'm interested in this. I don't want to take a lot of your time. Can you give me 30 minutes? And then, like you said, you show up with something, and that shows that you're invested in that effort. And a lot of times that will get you definitely a lot more than what you initially set out for.
Absolutely. I think if I would have brought a soggy sack of Sonic, I don't think it would have gone quite as well. But,
Yeah, if you brought a case of Truly, I don't know that you would have got the same result.
Or listen, before I start beating down on Milwaukee's best, I'm going to stop right there.
Okay, let's stop there.
Stop right there. Utica Club. I'm going to stop right there. Oh my goodness, the beers of my youth. Okay. So, hey, I'm so old. I've even seen a can of Jimmy. No, what was it? What was his brother's name? Jimmy Carter.
Oh, Billy Beer.
Billy Beer. Yeah, I've seen a can. I've seen in real life. I've seen a can of Billy Beer.
Yep. I will neither confirm nor deny. I've seen that.
I don't know why I'm going to say this now, but sometimes to stop people from talking, I'm like, I was born during the Vietnam War, so you just want to shut the fuck up right now. Because that's how old I am. Vietnam was still going on when I was born. It was the waning years. Okay. So I think that, this was a very free-flowing but wide-ranging discussion. And I think that we really did hit on, we had some fun. We had some good talks. We had some good laughs. But I think that we definitely hit on some rock-solid stuff that I think that our audience would be very well advised to listen and to pay attention to. I'm going to summarize everything together. There'll be a downloadable PDF for everyone in the audience. They can go ahead and download it with all of the main points from today's show. Mel, if what would be some last bits of advice that you would give to somebody?
Oh man, that's a good one. The person you are today is not the person you're going to be in the future. And it's up to you to determine who you're going to be. That's what I would say. I've walked through various parts of my career and had goals, and I've evolved as a person. And the person I started out being or wanting to be 20-something years ago, I'm not. And I've lived a very wonderful experience. It's been a great journey that's continuing. And the more I've learned, the more I've listened to books, the more I've read books, the more I've talked to people, the more I continue to change and evolve. And I can't wait to see who I'm going to be in the future.
Yes.
So you're never stuck where you are. You can always change. You just have to take a little bit of effort and start building on that.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Mel, I really appreciate it. And so I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you here on air. Would you please come back if we invite you?
Oh, yeah, man.
Wonderful.
Yeah, man, absolutely. You're familiar with a lot of the stuff I do. And I talk with leadership. I talk with individual success and anything that can help folks. I'm more than willing to come back, talk to anybody I can about whatever it would take to help them.
10-4. And I second that. If you ever need backup in anything, you definitely know where to find me. So Listen, Mel, I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you for sharing all of your insights with the audience. And we really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Mr. Mel Gower.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Really, ladies and gentlemen, this episode was absolutely full of very specific tips and tricks. And you really have to give it up to Mel. We're going to invite him back so that way he can continue and we can actually finish off and go around the corner on everything that Mel has in his system. I think that you're really going to enjoy it. Be sure to find his contact information in the description below. Also, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And we appreciate you listening to the Oilfield Leader Podcast. We'll see you on the next one.
The Oilfield Leader Podcast is brought to you by executive producer Daniel Corral, executive producer Jim Lynn, executive producer and voice talent, me, Mad Mac, production assistant Caleb Knott. The Oilfield Leader Podcast is produced and hosted by Christian Lombardini. Copyright 2023. The Oilfield Leader and Christian Lombardini, all rights reserved. Peace.